Hello and welcome to Party Quest. I'm Augustin Brawley, the creator of this little game here, and I'm here to teach you how to play, and hopefully under 5 minutes. So first, open the box. This rule booklet is a nice little reference guide. Probably refer to after watching this video if you forget anything. And quickly, I just want to talk about the parts of the deck. First of all, there's character cards. Every player at the table, except for the guide, I'll be playing the guide, will play a character, and they'll draw these cards to make their character. These are the scene cards. This is the next deck. These are played by the guide to introduce and progress the scene. In order to win this game, you have to complete 3 scenes, and I'll get to that in a minute. Both of these decks are placed within reach, especially the character deck. I'll, as the guide, will be the only one drawing the scene cards. You have these 2 special cards here. These are roll, outcome, and store cards. Have these handy. All the players at the table would need to reference these at one point. Then you have 2 other sets of cards. One is for the guide. These are called mission cards. The guide will look through and pick one of these that they'd like to play, and then put the rest in the box. They won't be needed for the remainder of the game. These are class cards. Now these will be drawn by each other player at the table at the very beginning of the game to decide what class their character will be. You can hand the deck to one player and they can pick one and pass it on to the next. We'll say the first player pulls a druid, and the next is a fighter, and the last is a cleric. So we have a druid, a fighter, and a cleric. The rest of these can be put into the box. Again, they won't be needed for the remainder of the game. So the way the game starts out is first of all, the guide will read the mission. This is the ransom note card. A teenage child of a local politician was kidnapped by a gang of goblins. A ransom note was delivered to the politician, so on and so forth. You've been hired to get the daughter back, essentially. So this will be set on the table here. The guide is going to read the back to themselves silently and kind of think about what the final scene of this scenario how it might go. I'll get into that in a minute. So I'll set that aside after I've told the party about where they're starting out. They can each introduce themselves and talk a little bit about how they know each other, why they're here, what they want to do, if they actually want to go rescue the daughter, they want to, kill the politician and steal his money and betray the politician somehow or another, whatever they want to do. They can just kind of talk a little bit about their intentions. Then after they've done that, they're each going to draw a character card, and they're going to start to build their character a little bit. So we have a angry druid, and we have an evil fighter. It's a dark party. And we have a deflect as the card, a cleric who has this ability to deflect. We'll get into what that means. And as each player draws these cards, they're going to be reading over what's on the card, and they're going to kind of be thinking about, how I can incorporate one of these elements on this card into my character's backstory or into my character's actions as the scenes progress. I'll get into that in a minute. So once all the characters have been built and the mission has been introduced and they kind of talk about why they're here, first thing to do is to pull a scene card. And I pulled a merchant card. So as the guide, I say, okay, we have a merchant card here. It needs to have scene points, and I'll roll for that. Everything is a sort of role-based system. You need a D20 if you don't have one. Go find one of these. There's apps for this as well if you don't have it. And you'll need tokens, which is just random pieces of, whatever you have around the house. I'm using rocks, little coral rocks here. So I rolled let's see what I rolled here. I rolled a 16. If I look at the roll outcome card, I can see that that's a success, and that means 4. See the number 4 next to success. That means I put 4 scene cards onto this merchant card. And I say something like, well, as soon as you set out into Sawwood City, you run into this merchant who has who stops all of you and says, hey, looking for the politician's daughter? I might know where she is if you give me some, So there's a merchant who might have some information. Then the gameplay begins, and it starts with one of the players. You can decide what order people go in. You can use initiative. You can just go in order. Up to you. You can have everybody roll and see who rolls the highest, and that's who goes first or whatever, right? So the first, let's say the druid goes first. The druid's going to think, okay, well, I want to get rid of all of these scene points. That's the goal. So I have this anger. I'm an angry druid. So maybe the druid gets triggered that this merchant would even presume that he could bribe us. And he just gets super triggered at the merchant and just wants to like basically punch him in the throat instantly and walk off. So I'm like, okay, druid, you get a +3 because you used your anger card and described how that fits the scene. And you tap the card by turning it sideways to indicate that you've used it. You can only use it once per scene. So whatever this druid rolls, we're going to add +3 to the roll, and then we'll determine the roll outcome. So the druid rolls a 7, +3 is 10, and I'll look here on the roll outcome card that is just barely a trade-off, which means that the druid loses a hit point and gets one of the scene cards. So as the guide, I'm like, okay, here you go. You get a scene point. You're down to 2 hit points, druid. And you went up to the merchant and you try to punch him in the throat, and you kind of like hit him on the side of the neck and just pissed him off a little bit. And he instantly just backslapped you as you did that. It kind of embarrassed you in front of the rest of the party. So the merchant's still there, still has information, and you're red-faced, and but a lot of the merchant knows you're serious, I guess. Cool. Next player. And on it goes, right? Each player will try to reduce the scene points, and they will go to the player who successfully does that. Once all the scene points are gone, the scene is over. You can discard this card, and now you're between scenes. Between scenes, you can do things like all of the cards that you've tapped, you can untap and reuse them. And each of the players draws another character card, builds their character. So now where there's a pessimistic, angry druid, we have a sensitive, evil fighter, and a twisted cleric who still has that deflect ability. So now it's the second scene, and the second scene means that there are 2 scene cards coming out. And so on it progresses, right? I'm going to roll to figure out how many points go on this thing and put points in the scene, and we're going to start out with everybody trying to reduce the scene points. Now, in the third and final scene, things change a little bit. Let's say that they successfully survive that scene. I'm going to flip, because I'm the guide here. I have the back of the mission card. On the back of it, there are scene cues and plot twist. And that means the scene cues are cards, they have sort of ideas about where the story can go. So there's a Politico card here that says that card would represent the teenager who's been kidnapped. There's an artist who's like the boyfriend of the teenager. And there's a humanoid who like represents the goblins. So let's say at the final scene, you actually like confront the daughter with the goblins. In order to set that scene up, I can just, in the final scene only, I can pick up this deck here and I can find those cards. Find the Politico, artist, and humanoid cards, and just kind of play them in the scene. And then roll like I would before to get the right number of scene points on these cards. Plot twist is a little bit different. I can play that at any point in the scene. Let's say they've done a few rounds and they've gotten rid of the boyfriend, and you've still got this drama playing out between the goblins and the teenager. And the plot twist, I say, okay, well, the teenager, you find out, actually doesn't want to go home. So, yeah, maybe she fell in love with the goblins or whatever. And that means I can roll to add bonuses to the Politico. So at some point I'm like, ooh, turns out this is going to be harder than you thought. The roll bonus on the plot twist is determined by the number of scene points the players have already earned divided by the number of players. So let's say that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 divided by 3. Round down, you get 3. 3 bonus to whatever I roll. 9 is 12, so that's plus 3. Sorry, I just heard some noise over there. So I get to add actually 3 more boom, points to the Politico card. So that's how you use the plot twist. Just made the scene a good bit harder. Decreased their chance of success. That's basically the game. If they successfully get rid of these points and eliminate these cards without dying, again, they only have 3 HP, the game is over and they win. Pretty simple, right? And they've just gone on an adventure to rescue a daughter from some evil goblins to earn the reward from a politician, let's say. Or something completely off the beaten path from that. Well, you know, who knows? It's up to the players to decide where this game goes. All right, that's Party Quest. Hope you enjoy. If you have any questions about those rules I've just talked about, again, you've got this little reference guide. Not the easiest guide for getting to learn the game, but great little reference if you've forgotten some of the rules. Hope you enjoy, and happy questing.